The snow that year didn't fall in flakes. It came in long, slanted ribbons, like the air itself had turned to glass. It hit the windshield in fast, streaking lines, blurring the world into white noise. From inside my car, the heater hummed low, the smell of pine from the dashboard ornament mixing with cold air and coffee I hadn't finished. It was Christmas Eve. The town had already gone quiet, the kind of quiet that hums underneath everything, where even light feels slower. I sat parked at the end of the cul-de-sac, engine idling, watching my mother's house through the falling snow. The porch light glowed yellow against the storm, flickering every few seconds like it couldn't decide if it wanted to stay on. There were already too many cars in the driveway. Daniel's black truck, my sister-in-law's silver SUV, Aunt May's old sedan half buried in slush. I should have parked somewhere else, but I didn't want to get out yet. Not yet. I just sat there, both hands on the steering wheel, feeling the heat slowly fade from my coffee cup. It's strange how a house can hold every version of you. The child who waited for Santa, the teenager who slammed doors, the adult who promises herself this time will be different. Every Christmas I told myself I was strong enough now, that I could laugh it off, that I didn't care. And every year I'd drive home afterward with a small, sharp ache sitting right behind my ribs. The kind that doesn't shout. It just stays. I could see shadows moving inside through the kitchen window, the way people moved around each other when they knew exactly where everything was. Daniel's tall frame bending slightly over the counter, my mother's head turning from the stove, that quick flitting motion she had when she was multitasking. The house looked warm. It always did. But warmth can be deceptive. It can hide sharp edges, the kind you learn to navigate by muscle memory. I took another sip of cold coffee and whispered to myself, "You can do this." It wasn't a pep talk, just a way of steadying the small tremor I still felt in my hands. Even after all these years, I had brought gifts, simple ones. Candles, a scarf, some handmade soaps from the local market. I'd wrapped them neatly, taped the corners down the way my mother taught me when I was little. I wanted to show I cared, even if caring had become a quiet thing. When I finally stepped out of the car, the air bit at my face, sharp and immediate. My boots crunched into the snow, leaving shallow impressions that filled quickly behind me. The smell of smoke from a neighbor's chimney drifted through the wind. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear faint Christmas music, the kind that always sounded a little lonely when it came from someone else's home. I stood on the porch for a moment before knocking. I could hear laughter through the door. Overlapping voices, the sound of plates being set down, a burst of something that might have been a toast. It should have made me smile. It used to. When I finally pushed the door open, the warmth hit me in layers. The smell of roasting meat, cinnamon candles, detergent, and perfume. The kind of thick, heavy air that feels lived in. My mother turned first. Her smile was bright, practiced. "Lena!" "Oh, thank God you made it. I was starting to worry the roads were bad." Her voice had that lifted, cheerful pitch, the one she used when she wanted everyone to feel comfortable. "I'm here," I said, smiling back. My voice sounded smaller than I meant it to. Daniel was at the table, carving the turkey like it was a sport. His wife Amanda poured wine, already tipsy enough to hum along to whatever carol was playing from the old Bluetooth speaker near the counter. Cousin Ryan was fiddling with his phone, laughing at something no one else could see. It was all painfully ordinary. A scene you could find in 1,000 living rooms across the country. But ordinary can still hurt. "Well, look who decided to show up," Daniel said, without looking up from the carving board. His tone was casual, light. But I could hear the grin even before I saw it. He raised his eyes then, meeting mine, smirk already set. "We were just wondering if you'd changed your mind again this year." He always had a way of making it sound like teasing, but I knew the rhythm by heart, the setup, the pause, the laugh that followed. He looked at the others, then back at me. "Don't worry, we saved you a plate. Outside with the dogs." Laughter rippled around the table, soft and automatic. No one meant to be cruel. That was the thing. They never meant to. That's what made it worse. My mother gave a small sigh and said, "Daniel, stop." But her lips curved upward anyway, caught between discomfort and habit. She always said he didn't mean anything by it. My body did what it always did. Froze. Not from shock, but recognition. I'd been here before. Same joke, different shape. I could feel my throat tighten, that heat rising behind my eyes. Not quite tears, just pressure. I almost laughed. Almost gave him what he wanted. The tiny surrender that said, "I'm fine. It's just a joke." Almost, but not this time. Instead, I just looked at him. Not with anger, not even defiance, just stillness. That's when I realized something small, but irreversible. It wasn't about him. Not really. It was about the way I'd been taught to keep peace at my own expense. To be the calm one, the one who forgives first, the one who absorbs the sting so the family can keep eating in harmony. The room blurred for a second, like sound had gone underwater. I could hear forks clinking, someone turning up the music. But I wasn't in that room anymore, not entirely. I was 12 again, sitting at the same table, when Daniel told everyone my secret crush, and I laughed so hard my face burned. I was 16, spilling wine on his Letterman jacket, apologizing while he called me hopeless. I was 21, home from college early after Dad's stroke, when Daniel told the neighbors I couldn't handle real life, and every time I told myself it didn't matter. That family jokes are harmless, that I was too sensitive. But now, standing there in that same kitchen with the same linoleum floor and the same hum of the fridge, I felt something different. The silence in me wasn't small this time. It wasn't fear. It was clarity. I reached out, placed the small gift bag I'd been holding onto the counter, and said softly, "Merry Christmas." Then I hung my coat on the hook, my movements deliberate, slow. Daniel had already turned back to the turkey, knife sawing through the meat. The moment passed for everyone but me. Inside, though, something had shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Like a door unlocking from within. The kind of shift that says, you don't have to keep standing where you're unseen. The snow kept falling outside, steady and sure, pressing its cold weight against the windows. And somewhere deep down, under the noise and the laughter and the weight of old stories, I felt the smallest, softest thing. A beginning. The kitchen light had always been too bright. It hummed faintly, a constant electric sound that filled the space between words. I stood under it now, half-shadowed, half-exposed, the way I always felt in this house. My mother brushed past me, moving fast, her apron patterned with red cardinals. "Can you check the rolls, sweetheart? I don't want them to burn." Her voice was light, but her hands were trembling. She hated tension, even the kind that hides behind smiles. I opened the oven just to have something to do. Heat rushed out, fogging my glasses for a second. I nodded. "They're fine." Behind me, laughter rolled in waves from the dining room. The sound had texture, sharp and glossy. I could tell when Daniel was talking without even hearing the words. His laugh was always first, louder than the story itself. "Hey, remember when Lena tried to make stuffing that year?" What was that, 2012? His wife's voice joined in, half apologetic. "Oh yeah, the one that came out like soup?" "Soup would have been an upgrade," Daniel said, and the table erupted again. I could picture it. His shoulders shaking, the tilt of his head when he delivered a punchline. He was charming, magnetic, in that way people forgive too easily. And I stood there, stirring gravy that didn't need stirring, pretending I couldn't hear them. It wasn't the story that hurt. It was the rhythm. The way it always came back to me, a predictable loop, every Christmas, every gathering. The family's favorite joke was the one where I lost something. A job, a class, my composure. And I'd learned how to smile through it. How to give them the version of me that didn't ruin dinner. I reached for a glass of water, but my hand trembled slightly, so I set it down. The truth was, I was tired. Not angry, not broken. Just tired in a deep, bone-heavy way that no amount of forgiving could fix. I leaned against the counter, my reflection caught in the dark window above the sink. The snow outside blurred into a moving wall of white, a soft, constant erasure. For a second, I wondered what it would feel like to just keep driving. No explanation, no goodbye, just stillness. But then my mother's voice broke through the thought. "You know he doesn't mean it, honey." I turned. She was behind me, hands wiping themselves on a towel that was already clean. "I know," I said quietly. "He just jokes like that," she continued, softer now. "You know how he is." I did know. And that was the problem. There's a certain kind of love that gets confused with tolerance. The kind where you keep letting things slide because you don't want to be the reason the room goes cold. I smiled at her, the kind of smile that asks not to be looked at too closely, and said, "I know, Mom, it's fine." But even as I said it, something in me whispered, "It isn't." When I was 16, Daniel was the hero. He had friends, trophies, a future everyone could name out loud. I was the messy one. Notebooks full of poems, unfinished ideas, emotions that leaked out in wrong moments. The night I spilled wine on his Letterman jacket, he shouted, "You ruin everything!" loud enough for our father to step in. Later, Daniel apologized in that joking way that isn't really an apology at all. "Relax," he said. "You're too sensitive." Those words followed me for years. Too sensitive. They taught me to doubt my own temperature, to question whether pain counted if no one else saw it bleed. When Dad got sick, I came home from college to help. I was 21 and afraid but determined. I cooked, cleaned, managed his medications while Daniel sent texts that said, "Hang in there, sis." He'd visit on weekends, shake Dad's hand, then leave early for something important. And yet at the funeral, he stood tall and gave the eulogy. "Dad always said family sticks together," he said, voice steady. No matter what, people clapped afterward. I just sat there, hands in my lap, staring at the ground. After that, I stopped arguing with him. Because what was the point? The world believed his version of things. Confident, composed, easy. And I was just the echo in the background. The emotional one who took things too seriously. But now, standing in that kitchen, I realized something I'd never admitted before. I wasn't the one who needed to toughen up. I was the one who'd been carrying the weight of everyone else's comfort. Daniel walked in, plate in hand, scraping gravy off with a piece of bread. "You're hiding," he said, grinning. I didn't turn around. "Just giving you all some space to laugh without me," he chuckled. "Oh, come on. You know we love you. It's tradition, and if we can't tease each other, what's the point?" I finally looked at him. His cheeks were flushed from wine, eyes bright with that confident ease I used to envy. "You ever notice," I said quietly, "how the jokes only go one way?" He blinked, caught off guard for half a second. Then he laughed again, louder this time. "There she is, the philosopher of the family." He left before I could answer, calling back, "Don't forget the rolls, chef." When the door swung closed behind him, I let the silence settle. Not an empty silence, a deliberate one. It's funny how you can live years believing you've forgiven people only to realize you were just avoiding the truth. Forgiveness without boundaries isn't peace, it's permission. I leaned on the counter, the light buzzing overhead. The laughter from the dining room had softened now, replaced by the faint clinking of forks, the rise and fall of music. My mother passed by again, touching my shoulder briefly, her quiet way of asking me to let it go. I nodded. For her, I always nodded. But inside, the quiet was changing shape. It wasn't submission anymore. It was clarity. I looked again at the window, at the reflection of myself framed by light and storm. My face looked calm, but my eyes had something new in them, something still, unwavering. I thought of Dad's voice again, soft and worn. "You don't have to prove anything here, kiddo." And suddenly, I understood what he meant, not about family, but about self-worth. That love doesn't require you to keep proving your place. I turned off the oven. The rolls were done, golden and rising in their tray. They looked perfect, warm, patient, waiting. I pulled them out, set them on the counter, and breathed in the smell. It reminded me of when I was a child before the jokes started, before the hierarchy of who got to speak and who got laughed at. Back when love was simpler. I heard a burst of laughter again, and this time, I didn't flinch. It rolled through the walls and dissolved. The sound of it no longer belonged to me. I knew then that I wouldn't be staying for dessert. That realization came quietly, like snow building on a roof, unseen until it's heavy enough to shift everything beneath it. I folded the towel on the counter, placed it neatly beside the rolls, and looked one last time toward the dining room. They were all leaning in, smiling mid-conversation. No one noticed I wasn't there, and for the first time, that didn't sting. It just told the truth. I whispered, mostly to myself. You don't have to keep asking for a seat that was never meant for you. The words didn't feel bitter. They felt honest, and that honesty, soft, fragile, but whole, felt like freedom. The storm outside pressed against the windows, white and endless. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, quick, sharp, alive. I looked down at my hands, steady now. The kitchen light still buzzed overhead, and I knew I was done shrinking to fit inside this house. It was strange how calm everything felt the moment I decided to leave. Not relief, not yet, just a stillness. The kind that happens right before dawn when the world hasn't remembered how to move. I stood there in the kitchen, coat slung over my arm, listening to the sounds that once defined Christmas. The scrape of forks against china, the murmur of overlapping voices, the sharp, short laugh that meant Daniel had landed another punchline. It was all background now. Like a radio left on in an empty room. My mother turned, startled when she saw me with my keys. "Lena?" Her voice cracked a little. "Where are you going?" "Dinner's not even over," I smiled, a small one, the kind that doesn't ask to be read. "I know." Her hand tightened on the edge of the counter. "Honey, don't. He didn't mean it. That line, he didn't mean it. How many times had it been used as a bandage in this house?" It had covered every wound until no one remembered there were cuts beneath. I met her eyes. "It's okay, Mom, really, I just need some air," Daniel's voice carried from the other room. "She's not leaving, is she?" I didn't answer. He appeared in the doorway, napkin in hand, wine glass half full. His cheeks were flushed, his grin fixed in place like it was carved there. "Oh, come on, Lena," he said, almost laughing. "You can't take a joke? It's Christmas." The way he said Christmas, as if the day itself excused everything. I looked at him, really looked. The confident tilt of his chin, the way his fingers tapped against the glass. He wasn't a monster. Just a man who had never been told to look at himself long enough to see what he'd done, and maybe that was the quiet tragedy of it. He'd never have to. Because someone like me had always absorbed the cost. I said softly, "I can take a joke. Just not the same one every year." For a moment, the air shifted. The hum of the refrigerator seemed louder than anything else. He laughed again, but it came out thin. "You're overreacting." I nodded once, as if to agree. Then I put my coat on. He tried again, his voice sharp now. "You can't just leave like that." "Everyone's here." "I know," I said. "That's why." The silence that followed wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even uncomfortable. It was simply true. And truth doesn't need to raise its voice. My mother looked between us, eyes wide and wet, her lips pressed tight like she wanted to fix it all but didn't know how. "Please don't make a scene," she whispered, and there it was, the final request. The one that always kept me small. But I didn't want a scene. I wanted peace. And peace doesn't perform. So I kissed her cheek gently and said, "I'm not making one. I promise." Then I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. Outside, the air wrapped around me. Cold, clean, endless. The snow had stopped falling, leaving the world covered in a quiet white that reflected every bit of light from the street lamps. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, just wide. My boots crunched softly with each step. Behind me, I could still hear faint voices through the walls, but they were muted now, distant, like a memory playing through glass. I reached my car, brushed off the snow from the windshield, and sat inside without starting the engine. For a long time, I just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, breath fogging the glass, the porch light flickering in and out. That house had seen every version of me. The girl desperate to be liked, the woman careful not to be loud, the daughter who always said it's fine, even when it wasn't. And now, it was watching me leave, quietly, respectfully, but entirely. The keys felt heavy in my hand. I didn't want to drive away angry. I didn't want to run. I wanted to release. I opened my bag and pulled out a small Tupperware container, the one I'd packed the night before, without even knowing why. Leftovers from my own little meal at home, roasted vegetables, a piece of bread, a bit of chicken I'd made for myself. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I balanced it on my lap, opened the lid, and let the steam drift toward the window. It smelled of rosemary and garlic, simple, warm, grounding. I ate slowly, every bite a small act of reclamation. Inside, I could imagine the conversation continuing without me. The laughter, the clinking of forks, the sound of the television switched on for background noise. They wouldn't talk about why I left. They'd tell themselves I was tired or sensitive or both, and maybe that was true. But what they wouldn't see, what they'd never see, was that the leaving wasn't about them. It was about finally choosing myself in a house that taught me to apologize for existing too loudly. When I finished eating, I rolled down the window. The cold air came in slow and sharp, carrying the faint bark of dogs from the backyard. I smiled a little at the sound. Without thinking, I crumbled the last piece of bread and dropped it into the snow for them. A simple offering, quiet, almost symbolic. Let them have what was left. I didn't need it anymore. The porch light flickered once, twice. I imagined my mother moving through the kitchen, cleaning up plates, trying to smooth over whatever tension I'd left behind. She'd tell Daniel to be kind. He'd shrug. And by morning, it would all become another story. Another small example of how Lena always makes things complicated. But I wasn't angry. Not at them, not anymore. Anger takes energy, and I'd given them enough of mine already. Instead, I felt something steadier, like standing in the middle of a field after a storm, everything soaked. But still, I started the car, headlights washing over the snow, making the yard glow in pale gold. The house looked smaller now, framed in frost. For years, it had been the center of everything. The place where I returned to be forgiven, to be accepted, to be understood. But sitting there, I realized something simple and profound. I didn't need to go back to be whole. Home wasn't a place. It was a boundary. A line drawn gently but firmly around what I would no longer endure. I placed a hand over my chest, feeling the slow, even rhythm of my heart. It wasn't racing anymore, I whispered. Not a prayer, not a goodbye, just a truth. You're safe now. And I meant it. The drive home was quiet. The roads were nearly empty, the kind of empty that makes every traffic light feel like it's waiting just for you. I passed the frozen lake where Dad used to take us skating. The benches were covered in snow. A single lamppost leaned slightly to the left, its light trembling against the ice. I slowed down, pulled over for a moment, and turned off the headlights. The darkness was complete, soft, and endless. I thought about the years I'd spent trying to earn space at tables that laughed when I spoke. About the ways I learned to keep peace by disappearing just enough to be tolerated. And then I thought, maybe love isn't proven by staying. Maybe it's proven by knowing when to stop shrinking. I sat there until the windows began to fog again. Then I turned the key and drove the rest of the way home, the snow crunching under the tires like applause you can only hear once you've left the stage. When I finally pulled into my own driveway, the porch light was waiting, steady, unblinking. Inside, the apartment smelled faintly of cedar and candle wax. I hung my coat, turned on the small lamp by the window, and let the silence settle like a soft blanket. No laughter. No apology. No performance. Just stillness. I placed the empty Tupperware on the counter and smiled. It wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about honoring the quiet voice that had whispered all night. You don't have to stay where love forgets to be kind. Quiet ending line. I didn't need their table anymore. I'd finally set my own.